Welcome again, everyone. My name is Paul Blahunka, and I chair a group called Vote Lake Bluff. I see a lot of familiar faces in the crowd, but obviously some people that don't know me and I don't know them. And I guess that there's more than a few folks who may be attending a Vote Lake Bluff meeting for the very first time. So if you'll allow me a 1-minute description of our organization. Vote Lake Bluff is a apolitical, nonpartisan service organization comprised of Lake Bluff residents just like you. We get together about 6 to 8 months in advance of these town meetings, which are held on even-numbered years in December, the first Tuesday and Wednesday in December. These are in advance of what we call the consolidated elections. This year it will happen on April 4th of 2023, next April. And really, consolidated elections is a term that constitutes the various local boards, okay? So in our case, we had our library and village candidates meet last night and give their statements of candidacy and hear questions from the audience. There were no competitive seats. In other words, there was no excess of candidates for available board seats, so it was really just a voice vote to ratify those candidates to gain the support of our organization. Tonight, we'll have 6 park board candidates running for 3 spots, and we'll have 5 District 65 school board candidates running for, 5 running for 3 spots. So both will be competitive elections. And really, our sole remit is to identify and support and to really promote the need for citizens just like yourselves to step up to the plate, so to speak, and volunteer for these very important positions. And to all the candidates this year, really a hearty thanks from me and the organization for stepping up to run, because it's very much in need, and you know, we still have some open spots out there from some of last night's positions. So then after tonight, our group will dissolve, we'll disband for the next 18 months, and after the April 4th elections, people will know who the winning candidates were, and we look forward to their leadership on the respective boards in our community. So that's really what Vote Lake Bluff is all about. There's 4 things we're going to accomplish tonight, and that's really the main reason that we have these town meetings every 2 years. It's really, we feel, the only chance for the Lake Bluff community to hear from the candidates, okay? It's a very important function. You know, most people go about their day-to-day lives, and all of a sudden it's election day, and you go into a voting booth, and you look at a ballot, and I don't know him, I don't know him, I don't know him. And, you know, unfortunately, and I've done it myself. So we think information is power, and we feel this is a vehicle to provide that information to the Lake Bluff community. So that's first objective. Second objective is you actually have a chance to query our candidates. We use a system where we pass out cards. Hopefully, there's some 3x5 cards that are already in the hands of folks. At the appropriate time, after the candidate statements, we will open it up for Q&A. Vote Lake Bluff has a few questions that we may start things off with, but general themes and popular questions will be funneled up to me, and I will read those questions to the candidates in the order that I get them received, and each candidate will have a 1 minute to reply to those questions. So that's our format. The third thing then is to vote for your support of the candidates, and to use the D65 as an example. We have 5 people running for 3 positions. The 3 leading vote getters will be announced tonight, as will the park board candidates. And those candidates will gain the support of our organization. They can use the Vote Lake Bluff logo and term if they want to, you know, make yard signs or whatever. They don't have to. But really, the main thrust of our support is the 4th objective of tonight's meeting, which is to allow those winning candidates to get their petition signed on the way out the door by you good folks. So it really is a major thrust towards one of the key pieces of their candidacy documents that need to be submitted on behalf of their running for the April 4 election. So those are the 4 objectives. And again, we are thrilled to see the popularity and all the people coming to help learn a lot about not only the candidates, but about the issues that are facing the various boards. Okay. I want to take 1 quick minute to introduce our team, because as we've been meeting for the last 8 months or so, it doesn't happen with just 1 person or a group of person. We've got about 10 or 12 folks who have really aided me greatly in bringing these meetings to fruition. So specifically, I would like to thank Margaret Abel, David J. Anderson, Neil Dahlman, Robin Huzik, John Josephitis, Tim Penich, Jillian Rosa, Kathy O'Hara, Jan Schnobrick, and Paul Lemieux. So please join me in a nice round of applause for those folks. So everyone hopefully has both an agenda and a ballot in their hand. I'll just walk you very quickly with the agenda, and then we will get started. We'll first listen to our Park Board of Commissioners. They'll give a 2-minute statement of candidacy, and then we'll have the Q&A. And while we're changing out from the Park Board to the District 65 candidates, I'm going to invite Dave Anderson up to the podium, one of our colleagues, to talk to you a little bit about our finances and requests for donations. We'll then go through the same process for the elementary school District 65 candidates. And then at that time, we will ask you to complete your ballots. We will have people running up and down the aisles to collect the ballots. The ballots will be counted in real time right up at this table where we've had the candidates. We hope to do that as quickly and efficiently as possible. We have plenty of volunteers, so we hope not to keep you too long. And then we'll adjourn for the process of petition signing. And again, we'll thank you for your interest and participation tonight. Okay, so without further ado, are there any floor nominations for any board position this evening? For either the Park Board or the School Board? Okay, I don't see any hands or comments, so I will consider the nominations closed. And with that, I'd like to ask the Park Board Commissioner candidates to come and have a seat at this table. Okay, we are going to start with the statements of candidacy, and we will go in the order, which is the alphabetical order as they appear on the ballot. So, Jennifer, please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jennifer Beeler. I'm an attorney. I have offices in Cook and Lake County. My husband, Roger Hecker, and I live directly across from Almond Park. So if you know your Lake Bluff parks, you know where Roger and I live. I have been honored to serve as an elected commissioner over this past term. Prior to that, I served for over 6 years as a trustee for the Friends of Lake Bluff Park's 501c3 Foundation. I can sit up here tonight and talk about me, but I think it's more important to talk about what Paul Greenfield, Emily Lane, and I have done along with our fellow commissioners over these past couple of years. When we were elected, there was a demand to this board to become more transparent, and we acted on that. We recognized that we had to go beyond the Open Meetings Act requirements to be interactive with our community. We now post our entire draft packet along with our agenda online so that everybody who wants to be informed has the opportunity to know what's before our board, both for voting as well as matters under discussion. This includes our working draft budget for 2023 and the years beyond. We revised our board policy manual significantly. We expanded our statement of visitors so that folks in person and online can comment on any matters before the Park District Board. We added a dedicated email portal so that community members can send us their opinions and their questions. I know that my fellow commissioners and I take that responsibility to respond back very seriously. This has been a very vocal year for the Park District community. I look back on this term with my fellow commissioners as one where the board acted decently and with respect to all of our community members. That will continue with our service. We volunteer our time on this board to act with fiscal responsibility, to provide quality programs, and to preserve, enhance, and improve the assets of the Lake Bluff Park District. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. We'll now hear from Don Fawcett.
Perfect timing on that. Very well done. I'll try to do the same. My name is Don Fawcett, and I am running for the Park Board for 3 reasons. First, I believe my professional background in contract negotiations would be valuable to the district. For over 20 years, I've overseen negotiations for millions of dollars in goods and services for large companies. I have a lot of experience managing suppliers and reducing cost. The 22 budget identifies $10 million in priority capital projects needed over the next few years. These projects could end up tripling our debt from $5 million to $15 million. There is a real need to reduce these project costs. I think I can help with that. The board recently renewed a $4 million contract without going to bid. I don't think that's good purchasing. If elected, I will make sure all contracts are bid. Second, We need to increase transparency and do a better job of capital planning. There have been referendums over the years to keep the pool and golf course running. It's been an ongoing existential crisis. We can do better if we are more transparent about the true costs of services. I spent hours looking through the '22 budget. I was surprised how hard it was to understand our financial position. The beach and the pool discussions do not even mention the $7.2 million needed for repairs. That $10 million list of capital projects I just mentioned is the last schedule in the budget, and it's not referenced or even titled throughout it. We need to be more upfront about our financial challenges. Facing facts will force us to plan better. If on the board, I promise to make facts and our finances clear. My final reason for running is I pledge to be an independent voice. Many of you know I supported pursuit of the wetlands. I want to be clear and say to both golfers and wetland supporters that I am not a single issue candidate. My number one priority is to get us out of the financial hole. If that can best be achieved without a wetlands, then I will pursue that path. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Next, we'll hear from Paul Greenfield.
Thank you, Paul. Since 2019, I have had the privilege of serving as a commissioner on the board of the Lake Bluff Park District. During that time, Jennifer, Emily, and I have been especially proud of our work in regards to Park District finances. Due to our leadership in fiscal responsibility and discipline over the last 4 years, we now have a healthy balance in our accounts that will result in our credit rating being raised and lower borrowing costs for the Park District in the future. Specifically, since our joining the board, our account balance in the general fund has increased from 7.7% to 37% of the budget. And in the recreation fund, it has gone from a negative balance to plus 38.1%. This has been done at the same time we were reducing overall debt levels of the Park District by 25%, while our executive director and staff have maintained our programs and facilities at their high levels, all despite the COVID pandemic. 2 years ago, I began questioning the provision for payment of capital expenses for the golf course in our contract with Golf Visions. Emily joined me, and we were able to successfully negotiate an amendment which both extends the current duration of the lease agreement and increases payments to the Park District to cover future capital needs. This revision has resulted in a 250% increase in golf course income this year and greater income in future years. Having given both encouragement and support to Executive Director Beeler to hire a full-time financial superintendent, we will be able to be even more efficient in maintaining the financial discipline we have shown, while also being able to keep the public informed about the financial issues impacting all of us. I very much want to continue this work on behalf of all the residents of the Lake Bluff Park District, and want to thank you all for coming here this evening to listen to us and to show your support for the Park District.
Thank you, Paul. Next, we'll hear from Emily Lane.
Good evening, friends. I am a current commissioner. I've lived in Lake Bluff for 17 years with my husband, Dave, and our 3 children, Ethan, Joshua, and Sophia. We've been huge fans and supporters of the Park District since 2005, starting with preschool and full circle with our kids working as lifeguards and attendees. The Park District has been a second home to our family, and I am thankful for it. I am a registered nurse and I have a passion for health and wellness. I believe the Park District is part of the community's public health infrastructure. During the COVID pandemic, Lake Bluff Park District was a source of light for our community. We were able to keep facilities and amenities open to residents throughout the pandemic with the support of staff and the community. We, the board, voted to keep the beach open. We were one of the few park districts to vote to open our pool with support of the community pre-purchasing memberships, always following the mission as responsible stewards of community resources. The district will enhance the community through recreational experience in a fun and safe and healthy environment. Our summer camps are the first ones to open while always prioritizing to maintain an environment conducive for a fun and safe experience with over close to 1,500 campers. Our public golf course, another essential service to our community, had close to 30,000 rounds of golf played. Racket sports continue to thrive, and expanded pickleball courts provided new opportunities to aid in mental, physical, and social well-being. The fitness center made accommodations with private workout rooms for patrons, all while monitoring, following, and implementing guidance by CDC, state, and local agencies, and continually adapting and modifying policies to ensure a safe and fun experience for all. We succeeded in the mission. We succeeded in the vision, strengthening the spirit of the community. Engagement in our parks and recreation and sport programs leads to healthier individuals and ultimately healthier communities. We put in the work, we took on the hard issues, and we represented the community and protected the Park District. I would like to continue to serve with my fellow commissioners, Jennifer and Paul, to provide continuity and stability after a very challenging term, but a successful one. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Next, we'll hear from Rich Martin.
Yeah. Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for your taking the time to come to tonight's meeting. And thank you for the Vote Lake Bluff Committee for all your hard work. I see a lot of familiar faces out there tonight, but for those who don't know me, my name's Rich Martin. I would like to outline 3 areas I would address as a member of the board: fiscal responsibility, transparency, and integrity. First, fiscal responsibility. The Park District needs a strategic plan in place to address its ongoing capital funding shortfalls. As a business owner for over 25 years and race director of the Lake Bluff PTO Pumpkin Chase for over 20 years, I am well versed in strategic planning as well as setting short-term and long-term goals to achieve outcomes, successful outcomes. Second, the park board needs to operate in a more transparent manner. There's been very little opportunity to have an open dialogue with the park board over the last couple of years, and that needs to change so everyone feels like they are being heard. The village board, school board, and task force all serve as models the park board could adopt. Third, the park board needs to adopt a more balanced policy of disseminating full and factual information to the public. When the public's faith wavers, the result is fractures within the community. Open, productive engagement can heal such misunderstandings and restore the vibrant exchange of ideas that define our village. It is my time to give back and offer my unique skill set for the betterment of the Park District. As a business owner for 26 years, race director for 21, I have the management expertise and skills that allow me to hit the ground running as a member of the Park Board next spring. A vote for me tonight is for fiscal responsibility, transparency, and integrity. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. And last but not least, Constance McCabe. Constance goes by Connie, so Connie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Connie McCabe, and I'd like to thank you for the honor of your presence this evening. I've spent 49 years designing educational and recreational opportunities for teenagers and adults, 43 of these years in Lake Forest, but as far afield as Senegal and China. Now, as an active older adult, I have decades of experience, and I understand how important recreational activities are for every age and economic level represented within the Park District. In high school, my best friend won an athletic scholarship to college, despite the fact that our school offered no girls' athletic teams, because she spent summers in our town pool, honing her swimming and diving skills. Thus, I understand how life-changing the opportunities offered by the Park District can be. My decades of experience running an academic department and implementing programs worldwide have taught me the importance of listening to differing opinions and crafting consensus. They have expanded my horizons to the possibilities of programs for all ages, from preschoolers to adults. Such programs foster the sense of community that our village so greatly values. All the voices within our community, young and old, need to be welcomed and valued by the Park Board. Meaningful, constructive dialogue will enable the board to resolve the considerable financial and infrastructure challenges it faces. If you support me as a member of the Park Board, I promise to be an open, fair, and fiscally responsible commissioner. Thank you.
Okay, Connie, thank you very much. Thanks to all for enlightening statements of candidacy. We're now going to move to the Q&A portion for this board, and the way we will do it, I will read your questions. We'll start with Jennifer, moving all the way down to Connie on the first question, and then Don will have first crack at the second question, Paul is the third, so we'll keep a general rotation so that everybody, and I have at least 6 or 8 questions here, everyone will get a chance to go first and last. So first question, starting with Jennifer. What are the most important issues facing the Park District today? We're asking 1-minute responses here, so keep an eye on Liz.
For the most part, the most important things before the Park District today is really our sustainability of keeping the assets that we have and making sure that we have the finances in place to be able to do that. As Paul mentioned, we have made substantial progress in reducing our debt and making sure that we have those fund balances available. But we have long-term capital needs for our beach, long-term capital needs for our pool, long-term capital needs even for the rec center itself. So our responsibility as the board members, what we've been working on for these past 3 years, what we've been working on in the future, is to make sure that we have the funding available to be able to do that. One of the most important things is looking for grants. We have a budget line item for next year to be able to do that more aggressively, because that's another way that we can bring more funds into the Park District and be able to maintain those assets.
Thank you. I would agree with Jennifer. I believe the largest issue facing the Park District right now is financing. There's at least $7 to $8 million of capital projects that are on the horizon, and there is not a source of funds for those projects right now. I think it's important to point out that the wetlands opportunity that came up potentially was a source of funds for the Park District. And I think one of the fundamental issues here is the board looking broadly at all of the opportunities to solve these financing issues? That's something that I would promise to be very independent and looking at all of the opportunities to solve the issues. Thank you.
In addition to what Jennifer was saying about protecting our assets, I think one of the important issues facing the Park District is how we attract and retain quality staff. This has become very, very difficult over the last couple of years. We are not unique in this, of course, but it has become more of a challenge. And I know that Executive Director Beeler is and has been on top of this and working hard to get that done. I also agree that we need to pursue, I would say, more aggressive strategies in finding sources of revenue outside tax revenues and program fees. We have plans on how to be doing this and how to raise more money and how to look for grants that it could be available to us. This is a long-term project, a difficult project that we are pursuing.
I also agree with Jennifer and Paul that the two major issues or concerns are adequate financing and having a competitive staffing. And again, with Paul and Jennifer's statement is that we've gone and focusing on alternative resources with grants, and then our next partnership with Friends of Lake Bluff Parks with fundraising, and then the last piece of that puzzle is partnerships. And a great example of this was with Paul talking about the golf contract and renegotiating that. That opens up some capital funding for other projects because now we have more money coming in from golf visions to help us out with our capital needs for the golf course. Now we'll have more money available for the other areas. And for staffing issues, I think our executive director has done a great job. We just at the last meeting learned that our HR personnel is going from part-time to full-time to help with staffing needs.
Yeah, I would dovetail with some of the things that were said earlier. We've got $11 million capital needs for the next 3 years. There's no source for it. The problem is the current boards spend all 15 minutes talking about it in the last year at park board meetings. So if there's a lot of discussions going on, it's not being done in the open. But yeah, that's a really big number. And then after that, the following 8 years, there's another $13 million that are needed. So you dovetail that with, the village needs 17 to 20 million, and then the school they're going to ask for 105 million. over at the high school, and it's all coming from the same pockets.
I think we're all in agreement that the financial situation is critical to the future of protecting the assets that the park currently has and that we all hold so dear. I noticed, though, that absent in the discussion so far has been the fact that they've already paid a consultant $38,000 to prepare a referendum up and coming, and this will be in addition to the school board referendum and the town referendum that are likely coming our way too. So it's certainly possible that we won't be able to depend on referendum income to cover the $10 million in assets based on the own park board estimates of what needs to be done within the next 3 years. I also noticed an absence of a mention that the fitness center memberships were down by 30%, and what are the plans to increase those? And also the fact that we're trying to maintain far more assets than our surrounding towns who have larger populations and larger tax bases, for example. So I think finances need direct attention.
Thank you. If we could pass the mic down to Don, we'll give you first chance at the second question. Lake County Stormwater Management still seems to want to partner with the Lake Bluff Park District. Do you envision an opportunity to create a future win-win partnership with the SMC? If so, what might that look like? If anyone needs me to repeat the question along the way, feel free to ask. Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, I certainly do, and I think we really need to engage more with the SMC to find out what that opportunity is. Unfortunately, I don't think the community really knows whether that's a good deal or not. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to understand that. I was very disappointed to see that the executive director of the SMC had to come to one of our public meetings to respond to the letter that was issued to the SMC, essentially implying that they thought there might be something improper or illegal with what was planned for how the SMC would assist the Park District. I would recommend, and I'd like to see, the board identify a couple of individuals who are in favor of the wetlands and also individuals who are in favor of the golf course, and have them form a panel and meet with the SMC to discuss what the opportunity is. And have that panel then report the results back so everybody knows, both sides seeing what the issue is.
The first thing we as commissioners look at when we discuss an issue is how will that issue affect and how will it benefit the residents of the Lake Bluff Park District. That's why we do what we do. If we are to find a way to move forward in any way, shape, or form with stormwater management, we have to make sure that the residents of the Lake Bluff Park District are going to benefit from that cooperation. We are always in favor of partnerships with organizations in our region. It has to be a partnership. It has to be a two-way street. And when we see a benefit to the Lake Bluff Park District, a clear benefit to the Lake Bluff Park District that is worth any cost that might be incurred, then I guarantee you the board will be active in pursuing that opportunity.
I agree with Paul. Partnership. What does that mean, right? What does a partnership mean? It means that both parties' needs are being met. And who do we partner with? Well, we have lots of different partnerships that Lake Bluff Park District partners with. To name a few, the Lake Bluff Yacht Club, everybody probably received this today. The Lake Bluff Open Lands is one of our partners. We partner with North Shore Water Reclamation. We partner with the Lake Bluff Park District. We partner with the Lake Bluff Baseball Association. We have lots of partnerships. We're really good at partnerships, actually, because we collaborate, and that is essential for partnerships. And again, it has to make sure that it's not a financial burden to the Park District, and it improves the Park District current amenities and services while solving the other partners' needs. And so that's what a partnership is all about, and that's what we look at as the Park District.
So what was the question again? Just with the SMC?
Okay. Lake County Stormwater Management still seems to want to further partner with the Park District. Do you envision an opportunity to create a future win-win partnership with SMC? If so, what might that look like?
Yeah, I would dovetail with what Don just said. That's an excellent idea where everyone's voice is getting heard, and just see exactly what the benefits are, maybe what some of the pitfalls may be. I mean, if it's not going to work, it's not going to work. But I remember Steve Kraus saying on multiple times he was in charge of the task force, if everyone remembers, very well-respected citizen here in Lake Bluff. He said many times, hey, meet with SMC, meet with SMC to find out, get more details, and engage with them. Well, that never happened. So, but I think Don's idea is a great one. Make sure everyone's voice is being heard and move forward from there.
Yes, I don't think many of us watching the process were satisfied with the level of engagement with the SMC. Therefore, I'd like to propose the immediate creation of a joint panel beyond the park board, a joint panel made up of wetland supporters and golf supporters who could meet right away with the stormwater management using information from the task force, which did an outstanding job of looking at the situation from many perspectives. And I attended many park board meetings and never heard any discussion of the task force findings. Furthermore, our neighboring communities have been able to interact very constructively with stormwater management, Highland Park, Libertyville, just to name a few. And I think we should be able to do the same. For some reason, communication has broken down between this park board and stormwater management. Therefore, I would like to see another group of citizens formed who could report back and who could make a real attempt to reach a deal.
Time. Okay, thank you. For this next question, we'll have, oh, I'm sorry. My bad. It's a long table. I'm sorry, Jennifer.
It's okay, thank you. I have to be brutally frank with this. Let's get the politics out of this. You can see on our timeline at the Lake Bluff Park District website how many attempts we made to talk to SMC. You will see that we have made an outreach so many times. We shouldn't have to FOIA another agency to see how they want to use the Park District land. Our executive director made multiple attempts to say all of the stakeholders, North Chicago, Lake Bluff, everybody should be seated at the table and talk. We're very willing, very open to do this because we want to be good neighbors. You want to use the Park District land? Let's make it a win-win for everybody. Let's make the golf course better. Let's make the community better. Let's do this. There's a way to do this. We have made multiple attempts. We still remain open to do this because there's a way to be able to benefit, as Paul said, everybody financially, everybody recreationally, and everybody with being good neighbors to our other agencies. Thank you.
Okay. Next question, which Paul will start with the first reply. What did the board do with the findings of the citizen committee to assess and to evaluate the Lake Bluff Golf Course regarding the wetlands? And I assume this is in reference to the task force, but I'll let you interpret that. Please go ahead, Paul.
Well, in fact, the task force was not formed to evaluate the golf course. The task force was formed to evaluate a project to put wetlands on the golf course, therefore eliminating the golf course from our community. The board looked carefully at the report from the task force, but at the end of the day, we had advice from our attorney that there was no legal path forward to use the scheme that had been promulgated by SMC and others to build these wetlands. So we have a responsibility to you, the community. And when our attorney says, this is not something you can responsibly do, and it will lead to potential financial penalties for the Park District, meaning higher taxes for all of you, then the board has no option but to say we are going to accept legal advice and we are not going to go forward with this. And that came up fairly late in the day.
Time.
But that was a major issue that we looked at.
Again, I agreed with Paul. We did evaluate them. Also, being the liaison on the task force, I was at every meeting except for the very, very last one where Jennifer stepped in. And so throughout the process, I would communicate to the commissioners an update of what was going on in the process. And if they had any questions throughout it, and not, I would give that to the task force. There wasn't many questions. I think everybody was just digesting all the information. And at the end, the conclusion was that you cannot sell wetland credits with using federal funds. And so that was the decision. Again, always making sure that it's not a burden to the Parks District and its citizens. And so, again, I agree with our decision. I think we did a good job of taking in all the information, allowing for any questions to come up.
Yeah, I'm not on the board currently, so I can't really speak to what they did exactly other than what I saw at park board meetings. SMC came to no fewer than 6 park board meetings and requested to discuss the project with them after the task force made their presentation. So it's a little unclear what people are saying prior to what I'm saying right now. So, and then with regard to the legality of it, if you go to page 114 in the task force, it's all there black and white. The Army Corps of Engineers literally lays out how it can be legally done. So, but as far as engaging with SMC, I can't really speak to that because I'm not on the board.
Yes, I'd like to reiterate and perhaps contradict a statement made earlier. SMC has no interest in whether or not Lake Bluff has a golf course. SMC has an interest in finding 40 acre-feet of water storage. That does not support or preclude the presence of a golf course. They both can certainly coexist if they need to. Just storing 40 acre-feet would not take much land away at all from the golf course. It floods anyway and is useless. Also, well, the golf course has to stay closed when it's flooded. There's no question about that. So, also, though, I'd like to reiterate that the Army Corps of Engineers deemed the project legal. There are certain guidelines that need to be followed about the use of federal funds, but there's absolutely a path forward. This is not an illegal proposition as was so disseminated erroneously throughout the community. Thank you.
I'm not speaking as the Park District's attorney. That's not my role. My role is to be a Park District Commissioner. And it's really important to understand that the Army Corps of Engineers told us that we cannot use federal funds to create wetlands that we then sell for a profit. So that whole proposition of $11 million for 72 acres of wetlands is absolutely impossible. We also asked SMC multiple times, give us the clear legal pathway to be able to use any kind of grant, a federal grant, a state grant, to be able to sell wetlands for profit. And SMC said, we cannot give you a legal opinion. That's the entity that wanted to use 72 acres of the golf course to be able to create wetlands. Believe me, we want to work with SMC. We want to solve stormwater problems up on Highway 41 in North Chicago. We have to do it legally.
Thank you. Some of the words we've heard here tonight to describe the SMC are proposing a scheme, refusing to meet, proposing something that is illegal. The SMC is the, regulatory, or not regulatory, but the state agency that does this stuff all day long. It's kind of hard for me to believe that they would be that nefarious in this whole thing. Right now, the village is working with the SMC for its own water problems. There aren't any issues in dealing with them, as far as I knew, with the village. So to me, it seems a little odd that there seems to be this particular problem with the SMC just with this case.
Next question for Emily. Similar theme. Given the controversy with the golf course, please explain how you will move forward with this situation.
Well, we're moving forward. Currently, we are planning to, currently we are revamping our strategic plan. We discussed it at the last meeting. Executive Beeler is going out to get some bids for consulting for the strategic plan to update it, because the last one was in 2019, and we did have to kind of pivot during COVID, our strategy plan, with the COVID pandemic. And so now we're at the point where it's time to pivot back, because we're not in the pandemic. So we are moving forward in all our amenities and reviewing the capital plan. We always have a 10-year capital plan. It's there on the website with the strategic plan that's on the website. There's also a comprehensive plan on the website. On the website, you can also find cost recovery, like how we maintain and how we budget. If there's a program that isn't working, staff is always continually reviewing the programming, the finances, to make sure that everything is in balance.
As far as moving forward, I think it's important to gauge the entire Lake Bluff community as far as what exactly they want. We need to have a board just actually discuss the task force findings in open meetings and just really dig into it with an open mind. And, you know, if it's not going to work, it's not going to work. But at least we've gone through the process to make sure everyone has felt like they've been heard and that everyone's best interest is in mind.
Okay. Again, I'd like to reiterate my call for a citizens committee of both golfers and wetland supporters to meet with stormwater management. The current park board maintains that they are open to stormwater management, but they've had over a year to sit down and really try to nail down a plan with stormwater management, and they have been unsuccessful, whereas our surrounding communities have been very successful in doing so. That's why I think a change is needed. More open-minded people need to come to the situation and sit down with both sides to make a deal. I believe in building consensus and not just in the status quo, continuing to, oh, well, the problem is they don't want to meet with us and they don't want to talk with us. Members of this committee do want to, members of this community do want to sit down, meet, and discuss. None of us is anti-golf. We just would like to find a way forward.
Repeat the question. Given the controversy with the golf course, please explain how you will move forward with this situation.
All joking aside, we all know the Park District golf course floods when it rains. We've seen people out there in kayaks and canoes. It's part of what a golf course does. Other golf courses do the same thing. But the flooding issue doesn't benefit the Park District. It doesn't benefit the Lake Bluff community. It's addressing North Chicago and Highway 41. We in the Park District have parks, the pool, the beach. We also have Carolyn Getz wetlands. We also have Belforet. We have wetlands right here in front of this school. So we right now are stewards of wetlands that don't generate revenue, don't provide money for the Park District, but we're responsible to maintain them. Thank goodness for Lobola. Thank goodness for the Boy Scouts who help maintain the trails in Carolyn Getz wetland. We're responsible right now for wetlands. If you're talking about building more, the really critical issue is where you're going to get the money to be able to maintain that kind of an asset. Thank you.
I guess what I'd like to see is the Park District develop multiple options for the community to look at and vote on as a referendum. Everybody here has agreed we don't have the funding right now to keep the pool running and take care of the beach. That's at least $7 million. It could be $10 million. And I think what many of us have said all along here is these things should not be looked at in isolation. There's a lot of discussion, obviously, tonight about the golf course and the whole process with SMC. But I think the community needs to say, or the board needs to say, look, here are 3 ways that we can solve this problem. One of them might be involve the wetlands. Another one might involve closing the pool. Nobody would want to do that, but the funds aren't there. Another one might be just to say, hey, we need to raise taxes. But I think we just need to come out and say, these are your choices, and let the residents decide.
In actual fact, we never stopped moving forward. So the concept that nothing was done over the past year and a half while we focused solely on the wetlands is absolutely incorrect. We accomplished quite a bit as a board. We always kept our eye on the fiscal bottom line, which is one of the primary functions of the Board of Commissioners for the Park District. We've also spent countless hours discussing some of these big capital needs, such as the beach and the pool, and discussing them, by the way, in ways that don't require referenda. So the assumption is being made that we are going to need referenda for these capital needs. And in fact, most of our time is spent talking about how we can do this without having to go to the taxpayers and getting more money. We keep moving forward, and we're going to keep moving forward for the residents of the Lake Bluff Park District to make everybody better off through what the Park District accomplishes.
The next question, do you consider the golf course issue closed after the election results? I think everyone in this room can now conclude that the issue is not closed. So I am going to pivot. The next couple of questions have to do with beach and some of our other assets. So I believe Rich will get first crack at the next question, which is, how did the Park District conclude that the levels of erosion and damage to the beach have been mitigated and that restoration is no longer necessary?
Was that actual finding?
I'm just reading the questions, Rich.
Okay. Well, I'm unaware of that there was a finding on that. I'm not currently on the board, so it's I'm not privy to that information.
Okay. Is that your reply?
Yeah.
Okay. Connie?
I would hate to speculate on how this park board reaches many of its conclusions, but I would like to say, having daily trips down to the beach, I can say that it is extremely difficult for anyone with disabilities to access. It is extremely difficult for our older citizens to access. Having accessed the Lake Forest Beach for over 40 years, I can tell you that on a daily basis, you see many more senior citizens walking along the beach, parking and looking at the water, and you just can't do that. I have a 93-year-old mother, and I don't know how she would ever get to the water at the Lake Bluff Beach. It just seems impossible. So to conclude that the situation at the beach, be it erosion or access, has been solved, I don't think is quite accurate.
There is no conclusion. We only have to thank Mother Nature because we haven't had the storms that we had in 2019. This is an issue that is near and dear to our hearts at the Park District Board. We had AECOM commissioned on a study many years ago, and prior to COVID, we really were working to address how are we going to face all of these erosion issues. What's going to happen with sand replenishment and with the clay that's underneath, that's holding the sand up there? What's happening with the debris that's coming down from the north and it's now showing up on our beach? These are pieces of concrete from roads, from the years that we used to throw broken pieces of roads and houses and things like that into the beach. This is all coming down into our Lake Bluff Beach. This is a vital, important issue. And the erosion is continuing, the debris is continuing. We as a park board, with everything else going on with the golf course, continue to talk about how are we going to look at this in the future.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a time bomb. I took the opportunity to meet with one of the engineers who's been involved in the looking at beach erosion before coming tonight, and he told me about all the risks and issues that are out there. It really is a matter of maybe one big storm coming in. One thing that has helped is that the water level has dropped over the last few years, but it really could happen at any moment, and it's not a gradual thing. A lot of the bluff could be taken away in one big storm. I think many of you have seen the damage done to the concrete in the area around the sanitation building. I would like to point out, though, this issue of transparency and not really bringing this to the community as a need to address. You know, a year ago, interest rates were quite low, and the opportunity to fund some of these things would have been ideal. Interest rates have gone up now, and unfortunately, it's a lot more difficult to deal with it.
The beach, no doubt, presents real challenges, and primarily, in my mind, primarily because it's, at the end of the day, it's controlled by Mother Nature. As a board, as Jennifer said, we are constantly discussing, regularly discussing, how we can get proper information to put a plan together to discuss that at the board level and potentially discuss it, and I assume it will be discussed at the community level. Because this is a decision, not a decision so much, but it's information that's very important for the community to understand. We don't have complete control over the beach. Mother Nature does. So within that, we have to study it, we have to work with it, as we are doing and as we have been doing, and then work with the community to come up with the preferred solution that everyone might have.
Just to answer some of those questions that were going around. So if you ever have any problems getting to the beach when it's open, that we do have, the Park District does have an ATV to accommodate anybody with disabilities. Also, we did do some work during our term where we did take out a bond and we did do part of the revetment down there. Over 200,000 pieces of stone was put down by the Park District down there that we hired in conjunction with North Shore Water Reclamation also adding some stone down there to the beach. So we are constantly moving forward and tackling projects. Sometimes we do it in small phases and sometimes we can do it in big phases, but if we can't do it in big phases and we financially can't do it, then we do it in small phases, and that's what we've done on this board. We have actually worked on that beach. Not only did we do that, we put the new stairs in, we put the upper staircases, the lower staircases, all with our partnership with, one, getting a grant, two, the partnership with the Lake Bluff Friends to pay for the
Connie will lead us off. Is there a comprehensive capital planning process for the assessment of our capital needs, including the beach and pool?
Well, I know that when the task force asked the park board for its long-range capital plans, it was not able to submit one to the task force, much to the task force's chagrin. I have seen capital plans that show money in the bank versus money that needs to go out as exactly matching, but then when you dig around on page 60 or so of the plan, you see about $10 million, more in expenses for, as the park board deemed, high priority projects, and nowhere do there seem to be funds or plans for funds other than hoping for grants to take care of that. So I don't think that a robust enough long-term plan exists. And I would also like to add a personal pitch as a longtime lifeguard. If you were to ask me about the importance of a pool in the community, there are countless situations. It's life-saving.
When you look at the money that comes into our park district, we have taxes. You know you pay taxes for the park district. We have revenue that comes in from the programs that we run, and we try to keep our programs self-sustaining so that they pay for themselves. On top of that, we look for grants. We look for the ability to find funding from other sources, and on top of that, we also look to the Friends of the Lake Bluff Parks for providing another source of funds for us to be able to do that. Our long-term capital plan is one that first off, allows us to pivot. We're a small park district. As we see something that is an imminent need, we're able to financially address it. If something goes wrong with the pool, we have the funds to be able to do it. But a long-term capital need will be something like the pool. With a 50-year-old pool with 50-year-old concrete, how are we going to address that? And we, as a Park District Board, are looking at that actively to say, we know what we have here.
Well, since this is the last time around here, I'm going to go in a little bit different direction. I think we're all very competent and all earnestly want to do the right thing for the community. I don't doubt that at all. I think the main issue for the voters tonight is a question of independence. I think you have a board now that's very strongly in favor of the golf course, and there's nothing wrong with that. My feeling is that there needs to be a little more independence in looking at some of the other areas to make sure they are not a potential solution to many of these problems. As I said in the beginning, I'm not a one-issue person. I'm not necessarily in favor of the wetlands. I'm in favor of looking at that opportunity and meeting with the SMC and finding out what it is. If it's not a good opportunity, tell the community and we'll move past it and we can all be, happy, good neighbors once again. Okay? Thank you.
The Park District absolutely has a long-term capital plan in place. This is the 5-year plan right here. There is a 10-year plan as well. I think in the past, to be honest, park districts have done very fancy 10-year plans with nice covers to them. 10 years is a long time, and as Jennifer alluded to, with a small park district like ours, to say we can plan what we're going to spend our money on 8, 9, 10 years from now in total is not possible. Staff is incredibly flexible in how they operate and how they address our capital needs within the budgetary constraints that are set for them. But there absolutely is a plan. This plan is discussed by staff multiple times every year. It's discussed with committees, it's discussed with the board, and it will be discussed with any member of the public that wants to attend meetings and hear the discussions. So, thank you.
Yes, we do. We have a long-term and we have a short-term. We have a 5-year plan. We have a 10-year plan. You can find these on our website. And if you have questions, you can always send it as an email, and I will be happy to show you where it is. I know where all the documents are. And we do take care of that pool. I'm a big fan of the pool. As a nurse, I think it is great to have a pool to train our kids to know how to swim before they hit that lake. It is so important. So do we maintain that pool? Yes, we do. We make sure that it is running before we have to get the season started. And last year, we consulted and they told us we got to fix the surge tank, the balance tank. And you know what we did? We fixed the surge tank, we fixed the balance tank. And that took away 2,000 gallons of water leaking. So yes, we have a really awesome staff that maintains our pool, our beach, our paddle, our pickleball, our tennis courts, our playgrounds, our preschool. We have so much good things for such a small community.
Yeah, with regard to capital plan, I'm sort of remiss that there's actually one out there other than just some numbers buried in a report on page 60 or 70. I know the strategic plan from about 10 or so years ago expired quite a while ago. There's nothing that's been put in its place. And there's a lot of talk up here about capital plan, and we're talking about it, and we're doing this, and we're doing that. They've only devoted 15 minutes in the last year at a park board meeting. So if it's such a big issue, why isn't it being discussed more? And it should be. It's a huge deal. It's $11 million over the next 3 years, and then another 13 over the ensuing 8 years. So it should be discussed at a very minimum once a month. As a business owner, my partner and I discuss things on a monthly basis for all these things.
Okay, so thank you all. That concludes our Q&A for the Park Board Commissioners. Clearly some very passionate issues with no easy solutions, but I personally want to thank, and I'm sure I speak for the audience, for all the time all of you folks took to prepare for the meeting tonight. So thank you. Okay.